Well, hello, everybody. It's me, Rashi. We are, what is it, May 23rd. Get lost. We can't believe that it's almost the end of May. The newsroom is pretty busy right now. We're dealing with some breaking news over in the Conroe area, and there was some weather as well, which you may know about. So, yeah, all that happening in the background here. But I wanted to make sure that we did this live stream because it is so very important. I know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but really it's something that we should be talking about throughout the year because mental health doesn't just go away after May. But I am glad that we're making the time to talk about something that is so important and really something that can affect anybody. And you don't even know that it could possibly affect you, your family, someone you know. And we're talking about suicide. And it has become the statistics, unfortunately, are pretty staggering, and the trend is going in the wrong direction. And there are many younger people who are taking their life. We're talking about from 10 to 14 years of age. I believe the statistic was 10 to 24, 24 to 30, speaking about it being the second leading cause of death in the US. So I did have a very powerful story that we aired yesterday in our 9 p.m. hour. It's on our website right now, fox26houston.com, and also aired in our 5 p.m. hour, where we heard from Kim Hess and her story. And it's really all about raising awareness and letting people know about all of the resources that are out there so that everyone can be helped in whatever part of their journey they're in. So I'm going to introduce you first off to both the lovely ladies that we are speaking with today. Hello, Kim and Nicole. Thank you for being here.
Hi,
Thank
how's
you
it
for
going?
having us.
Thank
Yes.
you.
So, Kim, I was going to start off with you. If you can first explain sort of how suicide has affected you and your family.
Yeah, so if you watched the story last night, you learned that we lost our 16-year-old daughter, Cassie, to suicide just 5 days before Christmas in 2015. And, it just completely caught us. I mean, it blindsided us. There were absolutely no signs. I mean, that was not on our radar as a family. Cassie showed no signs. She was not what you would think, someone who was contemplating suicide would look like. She wasn't depressed. She wasn't being bullied. She wasn't, she didn't show any outward signs of hopelessness that we saw. And so for her to just take her life that day, it just completely shocked us as a family. And, it just wasn't something that we could prepare for. She didn't give us an opportunity to be there for her. She never opened up to talk about it. And so, that's one of the things when you say that, awareness is so important. It truly is, because, if you're not even as a parent, if you don't put that, in the back of your mind or even in the front of your mind, if you're not just, aware that your child, your family could easily be affected by suicide. No one is immune to that. And so it's so important to have these conversations with your children. So, they feel like they can open up and talk to you about anything. So if there's one thing that I could tell any family is please just open up those conversations with your children. There's no reason why anyone should feel like they can't talk about suicide.
And I just want to bring out like how strong your message is, and how amazing and grateful I am that you are speaking about this. And I'm sure that it's gotten, in every event that you go to, we were talking about life events. It's very difficult. One thing that really stood out when we were having our conversation is how you said that you think that the pain will stop if you end your life, but the pain just transfers on. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's so true, because the pain doesn't just go away. It just gets passed on to the survivors. And, and it's affected our family in so many ways. We had, of course, all go through therapy, and I mean, losing a child is the hardest thing any parent could ever go through. That's not something that you ever get over. and then losing a child to suicide just adds so many more layers to the whole grieving process, because you always ask yourself why, what if I did this, what could I have done. And so, you know, it's we've all gone through counseling, and I just highly encourage any family who has had a loss like that, please seek counseling, because it's, I mean, healing from something like this is a slow and long process. And I don't know if you truly ever heal from this, but you just learn how to live differently without them.
And I'm sure you sharing your story is helping so many other people. And Nicole, I'm going to bring you in this conversation because you're with Mental Health America of Greater Houston, and you do
Yes.
training there. So explain to me what kind of situations that you've encountered and what your training does.
So our training is basic gatekeeper training, and what they mean by gatekeeper is anybody in the community. And Kim, I just want to thank you for being so brave and having these conversations, because that's really what it's about. Do you know what the protective factors are? What are the things that keep your people safe? What are the risk factors? What are the warning signs and warning factors? And then do you know how to approach someone who may be experiencing or exhibiting some of those signs of suicidal ideation, and how to connect them to care? That's really what those trainings are all about. And so I've trained in a variety of places. We have like law groups, hospitals, and et cetera. So it really is the gamut. One that really surprised me was hotels. I didn't realize that that was also an issue with hotels. I think it was the DJ from the Ellen DeGeneres show did the same thing. He went to the hospital and died by suicide. I'm not hospital. He went to a hotel and died by suicide. And I think there it's just kind of, I'm not a burden. I'm not, pestering anyone or anything like that. Because sometimes those are thoughts that are on, their hearts. They feel like they're a burden, and I don't know how to share that with anyone. I don't know who to open up to. So those are some of the things that come out in the trainings.
So I sort of want to separate this into two factors. One being someone who is thinking about suicide. There's so many resources out there. I would say that for many of them, they may not even know what's out there. What are some of the, I would say maybe top three that you would tell people if they are? I know we have the number, and what would you explain to people who are out there watching, maybe seeing this, what they need to do immediately?
I would say immediately talk to someone. If you don't feel safe to talk to someone, a close family member, a friend, a clergy member, or anything like that, you can also text. So I think you can text home to 741-741. That's a crisis hotline. 988 is also available, talk or text. And I believe also for our LGBTQ plus youth, there's also the Trevor text line. So those are three that are available. In one kind of trick of the trade that I've also heard is to save those numbers in your phone under the letter A, so that they're right at the top and available, and you never know in any crisis situation when you're going to need them. And they are available. They will talk. They can text, because that's usually our younger people. They love texting. They don't want to talk to anyone. And it can also be scary to actually say it out loud to someone that, hey, I'm not okay, and I'm considering hurting myself, or I don't want to live to see tomorrow.
And, I've talked to parents and other children, teenagers, and it's with social media now, especially because you see these like highlight reels of people, and you think that this is reality and this is what you need to be like, and there's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself. I mean, it's so important to continue the conversation with someone, to know that you're not alone. And I would say, just from my speaking with other people, teenagers, and also with parents. I mean, parents get frustrated. We get all, tangled up and feeling some kind of way, and we have to have a release, in some way. And I think with the way that the world is now, especially with all the digital stuff, we have to make sure we keep that a priority. How, Kim, have you been able to prioritize your mental health as a mother throughout this process, and just in general?
It's kind of hard to separate that. A mother is the usually the fixer of the family and keeps the whole nucleus together. And so I guard my family from all of the work that I do in the community for suicide prevention. Because it's on it's on our minds all the time. We're reminded by it every time we look at a picture, every time we hear a song. We're constantly reminded. So I try to keep that a little separate from all of my suicide prevention work I do, because it's important for for us to stay strong and and to continue our mission. I go out there and I speak to schools all the time, and I mean kids as young as junior high. And every time I go out there and share Cassie's story and just talk about the whole suicide in general, and talk about how it's so important for them to talk about their feelings, every time I'm done, kids come up to me with tears in their eyes and just hugging me and thanking me for for opening up the conversation and for allowing them to feel like it's okay to not be okay. Because that's, we constantly say that, it's okay not to be okay, but it's so true. I mean, those few words are so true, and so I always ask them every time, I'm like, who are you talking to? And they're like, nobody. They're not talking to anybody. They're not talking to their parents, to their friends, to their teachers. So that's our biggest challenge, is to just open those conversations and remove the stigma about suicide. That year that we lost Cassidy, I know there were at least 6 other students in our community that died by suicide, and we didn't know any of them. Cassidy was one of the last ones, and no one was talking about it. So I think by having these conversations like you're having with us is helping so much for people to realize there's no shame in talking about your mental health.
And that's the biggest thing, is no shame in talking about it, because, anxiety, depression, all kinds of things, they happen to almost everyone. And it's kind of like, I would say us growing up, or, generations before, it wasn't talked about as much. And now it's like in the forefront, right, and we have to take that out.
And I think as parents, we need to share all our struggles with our children. We need to not just always only talk about all of our successes and all the things that we've accomplished in life. Let's be honest with our children, share them our struggles. That way they know that, wow, they're human. They can actually talk to us and we'll actually understand.
And I'm sure, Nicole, that's what you do in your training as well.
Absolutely. And just kind of like mentioning what you were talking about, the highlight reel with social media, we always get to see the pluses and we don't get to hear or see the minuses. What is the resiliency that you have? What were your coping skills? How did you get over it? Because there is that kind of veneer to appear perfect. And just for us to know that it's okay. There's an open space. People want to hear from you. They care about you. And that's really important to reiterate, and regardless of the topic.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to talk about the other side of it, is those who are parents or friends, or may feel like they need to talk to someone who possibly might be thinking about it. And, Kim, you sharing your story is so powerful, because you see Cassidy, you see basically everything that she's done, and so many people can relate, because just like Robin Williams or all these other people that, face value, you would be like, oh, there's no issue. There's no, so when it comes to, especially the teenage years, we've all been there. That's like a hard time where you're like, okay, the kids kind of, I shut down too. And how do you kind of open up, or do you you said something very interesting, which was to just start the conversation and keep it going.
And that's just it. Anything can open up that conversation. I mean, those simple words, like I said, hey, are you okay? And then, and if they're not okay, don't just take, hey, I'm fine as an answer and stop there. You keep pushing, your child or your best friend better than, most people. And so just keep pushing the issue. And we support a bunch of girls in support groups here, and they all come in thinking that first they don't want to open up and talk, because so we don't even call them support groups anymore. We call them take the lead group. And then once they start having the conversations amongst themselves, they realize, oh my God, I'm not the only one having the same feeling. Like all of them are feeling the same insecurities, and these are best friends, and yet none of them knew it. None of them were talking about it, because they keep their best face, on social media. And I tell you, I've seen that there's a lot of pain that hides behind a big smile. So, we just keep, we keep parents trained. Like, I don't know, do you do this training in schools, Nicole?
Yes, one of our other program areas, the Center for School for Behavioral Health, they have a youth suicide prevention module, and they work with youth-facing adults to make sure that they're aware also, because it can happen in a moment, and knowing that suicides happen sometimes in clusters, right? Like you mentioned with Cassidy. So it's really important for not only teachers, other students to be aware of what we're looking for and who to like tap into for that help and support.
And Nicole, if you want to just go into what all you do offer at Mental Health America Greater Houston.
Sure. One of the things that we offer is Ask Suicide Prevention, and that is that gatekeeper training that I was talking about. Another that is offered by our veterans team is CALM, which is Counsel Against Lethal Means. They have some of the same principles. We're trying to figure out what are your protective factors, your warning signs, what are your risk factors, and then we want to make sure that you separate that person between those means. So if I'm going to ask you, hey, I've noticed that you seem pretty withdrawn, or you don't seem excited about the things that you used to, or just to ask, you seem really sad about such and such, people who are sad like this, how do we approach that person and say, that sounds like suicide? And that can be the hardest thing to do, is to ask someone if they are considering suicide. But research has shown us that asking the question is not going to lead that person closer to suicide. It could be just the snap that they need, like, oh my gosh, I'm glad you realized it, or, oh, why would you say that? No, that's not, where I'm headed. So getting into those types of trainings are going to be helpful, because it's a hard thing to ask, but you've got to practice it, with your body language and things like that. So we do offer those two. And then I mentioned the Center for School for Behavioral Health also has a youth suicide prevention module that is pretty impactful.
Yeah, and that's so great that that's out there in the community. And we've also posted the link on our website as well with this story. Kim, tell me about this nonprofit that you and your family have started.
We knew that the students and the teens had to be part of the solution for them to not lose any more peers to suicide. So we felt it very important to get this message into the schools. So we started Join for Hope clubs in the schools, and this allows the kids to openly have these conversations. This type of training, like Nicole was talking about, we've used the AFSP model, Talk Saves Lives, and different things like that. But it's the same sort of training for teens. And so it's important for them to see these signs and feel comfortable with asking. So that's one big thing we've done. And we're in a lot of schools here in Montgomery County, and we have 2 college level schools that for the training. We sponsor training. Some of these models require sponsorships. They require funding for it. Some of them are free. So we offer training in our community. We help families subsidize the cost or pay for all of their costs for private therapy when they can't afford it, because we don't want any financial burden to be a reason why a family doesn't get help for their child. We offer scholarships to students. We've started a student-led podcast where these students can start having these open conversations, and we want to get the podcast into each of our schools. So we're trying to do a lot of things throughout the community. But the biggest thing that we do is I go in and I speak to schools, and I speak to churches, and just any community event, Lions clubs and things like that about this very thing. And then we go into the training. And so, it's something that you can't even start too young. I mean, I've talked to families where they've had their 5-year-old, not 5th grader, talk about having a plan for suicide. So, I'm talking, these are young children that are thinking about it, and some of them have plans for it. So, and I think, like what Nicole was saying earlier, it's a myth that if someone asks you if you're considering suicide, that's going to put the thought into your head. So we've thought that for so long, but it's not true at all. Just like Nicole said, that if you ask someone, it just opens up the door and it just releases the burden and it lets them talk about it. So I think it's just so important.
And that's such great work. And I'm sure, Nicole, what you are doing is amazing too. But I think the most powerful thing is really what Kim is doing and with her message. And I can't, thank you enough for doing that. And I know that I want to do another story about how there's a bigger effort where they're trying to do in Montgomery County. So we'll be talking about that pretty soon too. But before we go, is there anything that you'd like to impart to parents? I know that Kim, you were talking about the advice you wanted to give them.
Oh, yes. I mean, just biggest advice is just don't ever assume that this won't happen to your family. I mean, listen to stories like mine. There's unfortunately a lot of stories like mine. And we thought we were doing everything right. We were very connected to Cassidy. She had great friends. She had a great support group. She was at school, at church. I mean, she was doing everything right. She was a varsity cheerleader, but yet she was hiding something that she couldn't come out and talk to anyone about. So just as a parent, please just slow down, listen to your children, just notice any of these signs. First of all, learn what these warning signs are. And then if you notice them, I mean, don't dismiss them and don't just assume that they're being dramatic or having a bad day or a week. I mean, just really this day and age, we as parents can't dismiss anything. So and the most important thing is trust your gut. If your gut tells you something just ain't right, guess what? Something probably is not right. And your child is probably just begging for someone to notice and for them to start the conversation.
Thank you so much, Kim. And Nicole, it's great to know that resources are out there. I literally was just kind of Googling and you guys came up and I didn't even know, my ignorance, but I didn't know, this existed out there. So thank you. And what would you like to say to parents?
I'm going to echo what Kim was saying, that I think it's important to get your information, know where and how to refer someone. Even if it's a family member, a friend, whatever it is, know how to refer them to services. Don't be afraid to ask them the question. And you do have to ask it very directly. Are you thinking about dying by suicide? Are you thinking about taking your life? Are you thinking about not waking up tomorrow? So you have to ask, and I would say ask again, because sometimes we blow it off like, oh no, I'm fine, because we don't want people to get too close. It's something that we're holding close to the vest. There's a lot of stigma involved with even having suicidal ideation, but encourage that person to know that you are there for them, that those thoughts are not normal, but they're also temporary. And so you want to make sure they're not making a permanent decision on temporary feelings. And so just making sure that you're well educated with those warning signs, factors, and how to refer someone to services, I think is the best thing you can do to help save a life.
All right. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. And I'm sure it's made such a big impact. Thank you, Kim and Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Bye-bye.
And I appreciate all of you joining us for this parent to parent live stream, such a very important topic. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. You can also share this with your friends and family. And, biggest important message out there is that you're not alone, and to make sure you check in with everyone in case, they are not doing well. Might not be as extreme as suicidal thoughts, but might be something else. So, we just got to be out there and kind to one another. Thanks so much.